She walks the line on a narrow street, Santiago's heat on her restless feet. Words like fire burn the air they meet. Truth speaker, she don't bow or retreat. Maria, Maria.
Ghislaine Maxwell's epic fuck you to the GOP clown show Well My Loves Today is November 22, 2025. Listen up, you fabulous bunch of truth chasers and bullshit detectors. Because today, I'm diving headfirst into this steaming pile of hypocrisy that's got the whole political swamp bubbling over like a bad batch of moonshine. And it's all centered on that slimy Epstein saga that just won't die no matter how many times these so-called investigators try to bury it under their own egos. I'm talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, that brittle British bitch who spent years pimping out teenage girls like they were party favors for her pedo pal Jeffrey Epstein. And now she's straight up flipping the bird to James Comer's House Oversight Committee by pleading the fifth on every goddamn question they throw at her, leaving their big hyped-up probe looking like a deflated balloon animal at a kid's party gone wrong. Can you believe this crap? After months of Comer and his MAGA merry-go-round crew thumping their chests on Fox News about how they're gonna blow the lid off everything, subpoenaing files left and right, dragging in banks and survivors' stories like it's some heroic quest. The one witness they pinned all their wet dreams on, the convicted sex trafficking queen herself, decides, nah, I'm not spilling a syllable, and instead she's hunkered down prepping her get-out-of-jail-free card straight to Donald Trump's desk. Because why cooperate with congressional hacks when you can cozy up to the orange overlord who's already got his greasy fingerprints all over this mess? Oh, come on, let's unpack this disaster step by step, because if I don't laugh at the absurdity, I'll just scream into my coffee mug until it shatters, and nobody needs that kind of cleanup on a Saturday morning. Picture this. Back in July, Comer's committee slaps a subpoena on Maxwell while she's rotting in that minimum security spa they call a prison down in Texas. Yeah, the one she got bumped to right after spilling whatever half-assed beans she could to the Justice Department in a cushy 2-day chat. Because apparently trafficking kids for billionaires earns you better digs than your average bank robber. And at first, her lawyers play coy like, okay, maybe we'll talk. But only if you grant her full immunity so she doesn't get slapped with more charges for the mountain of dirt she hasn't coughed up yet. And oh, by the way, hand over the questions in advance so she can rehearse her poker face like it's a goddamn Broadway audition. Comer, that blustery Kentucky blowhard with the comb-over that screams midlife crisis, shoots that down faster than a hunter with a grudge, calling it a non-starter because, duh, you're not going to give a notorious enabler a free pass to dodge the noose while the rest of us peasants play by the rules. But here's the kicker that has me cackling so hard my sides ache. Her team comes back and says, fine, then we're invoking the fifth on everything. Every single probing little query about Epstein's black book, his island orgies, the flights full of frightened faces, and especially anything that might loop back to Trump's Mar-a-Lago minglefests where Epstein was a regular, dropping by for massages, and who knows what else while Ghislaine played concierge and Comer. The man's response is pure gold in the hall of pathetic excuses. He tells Politico, straight-faced, that he's scrapping the whole depot trip to Texas because why waste taxpayer dollars flying his staff down there just to watch her clam up like a guilty toddler hiding cookies? Admitting it's not worth the gas money now that their star turncoat has turned tail and run right back into Trump's forgiving arms. Ha! What a load of horseshit. As if this probe wasn't already DOA the second they realized it might shine an unflattering light on their own party's golden boy, the guy who signed that half-hearted Epstein Files Transparency Act this week after dragging his feet like a kid forced to eat broccoli. Only to have his DOJ sit on the juiciest bits, while Maxwell's team whispers sweet nothings about a commutation that'll spring her early and let her sip tea in the Hamptons again by Christmas. I mean, seriously, folks, this is the same crew that spent the summer waving around 20,000 pages of Epstein's emails and estate docs, cherry-picking lines about how Trump knew about the girls and spent hours with one of the victims, but oh no, They conveniently gloss over that to chase ghosts like Bill Clinton's golf game or whatever distraction keeps the base from turning the spotlight inward. Because God forbid we talk about how Epstein's flight logs read like a who's who of Republican royalty. With Trump hopping on that Lolita Express at least once before he pretended he never met the creep, it's fucking infuriating, isn't it? You sit there watching these Republican ringmasters crack the whip on transparency and justice for survivors. 1 minute, trotting out bipartisan votes and survivor testimonies like they're auditioning for an Oscar in performative outrage. And the next they're folding like cheap lawn chairs when the heat gets too close to their tangerine-tinted messiah. Who, by the way, has been radio silent on why his old buddy Epstein's secrets are suddenly a national security risk, only when it suits the narrative. Maxwell's not stupid. She knows the score, knows that cooperating with Cummer's circus would mean spilling tea that scalds the very hands feeding her pardoned dreams. So she demands immunity like it's her birthright, gets denied, and boom, Fifth Amendment shield up, probe crippled. And Cummer left mumbling about fiscal responsibility while the real story, that the GOP's Epstein obsession is just a smokescreen to deflect from their own tangled web, fades into the ether faster than a politician's promise. And don't get me started on the cushy deal. Angle, because right after that DOJ powwow in July, where she probably lawyered up and lawyered out without breaking much sweat, they shuttle her to this low-security resort disguised as a federal pen, complete with yoga classes and craft time or whatever the hell passes for punishment these days. All while survivors are still piecing their lives back together from the trauma she helped inflict, screaming into the void for the full truth that keeps getting parceled out in dribs and drabs to keep the outrage machine humming without ever actually grinding the gears. Yell it with me now. What a goddamn joke. These people promised bombshells, remember. Cummer strutting around like John Wayne reborn, vowing to expose the deep state cover-up, the elite pedo rings, the whole rotten underbelly, and all we've got is a subpoena salad. Some bank records that say jack shit about the big fish. And now Maxwell's big middle finger ensuring the whole thing collapses under its own bloated weight, leaving us with nothing but echoes of Fox News clips where pundits blame the woke left for not letting them witch hunt in peace. It's almost poetic in its patheticness, how the party of law and order crumbles the second accountability knocks on their door, preferring to let a convicted trafficker dangle her pardon hopes like bait, while real victims get lip service and subpoenas that go nowhere. Because heaven knows Trump can't have his administration's DOJ grilled too hard on why they slow-walked the file dump even after he signed the bill. Or why Maxwell's interview transcript reads like a sanitized script from a bad spy novel, full of gaps and giggles where confessions should be. Laugh with me here, because if we don't mock this farce, we'll all lose our minds. Ha ha ha. Can you imagine the Oval Office call, Trump cooing over the phone about how Ghislaine's such a good girl, who just needs a little presidential mercy, while Cummer's committee scratches its ass in confusion, wondering how their masterstroke turned into a faceplant. But here's the blunt truth I've been dying to spit out, the one that ties this whole circus together like a noose around the neck of every enabler still pretending this isn't about protecting the powerful at all costs. The GOP's Epstein probe was never about justice. It was about theater. A way to sling mud at Democrats and distract from the fact that their frontrunner's been orbiting this scandal like a moth to a flame since the 90s, banning Epstein from Mar-a-Lago only after the stench got too rank. Yet still name-dropping him in interviews like old times until the lawsuits piled up. Maxwell's refusal isn't the kick to the support beam. It's the cherry on top of a sundae of self-sabotage, proving once again that when push comes to shove, these clowns will always choose loyalty to the con man over loyalty to the truth. Leaving survivors sidelined and the public played for fools in a game rigged from the jump. And me, I'm over here shaking my head at the sheer balls of it all, because if this doesn't scream do as I say, not as I do, I don't know what the fuck does. It's like watching a fox guard the henhouse while lecturing the chickens on security protocols, all bluster and no bite, collapsing the minute a real predator shows up and says pass the popcorn, Phew, that felt good to unload, didn't it? Like finally scratching that itch you've had since this story first slithered back into the headlines, reminding us that power protects its own, no matter how many little girls get ground under the boot in the process. Stay vigilant out there, my loves, because stories like this don't end. They just hibernate until the next election cycle wakes them up with fresh lies and recycled rage. Veterans storm the swamp. GOP's grip slipping faster than a greasy handshake, all right. You sharp-eyed skeptics and fed-up fighters tuning in from your couches or your protest prep stations. Because holy shit. If this isn't the kind of weekend shakeup that has me grinning like a cat that caught the canary while it's still chirping for mercy, we're talking about these badass veterans who just lit a fire under the bloated ass of Congress in Washington, D.C. Marching right up to the Capitol steps, not with their usual quiet nods to flag-waving holidays, but with fists in the air and chants that echo like thunder rolling through a corrupt canyon, demanding impeachment, removal. And a full-on reckoning for the clown show that's been turning our democracy into Trump's personal piñata. And get this, it's all unfolding today under this "Remove the Regime" banner that's got the whole city buzzing like a hive of pissed-off hornets, ready to sting the suits who swore oaths they treat like cocktail napkins. I mean, can you even wrap your head around the balls on these folks, veterans from every branch? The ones who actually bled for this country's ideals while the draft-dodging draft board-in-chief was busy bone-spurring his way out of Vietnam, now turning that same grit against the very machine that's been slashing their benefits, deploying troops like chess pieces in some dystopian game, and letting Elon Musk's Doge squad hack away at federal jobs like it's a bad acid trip on efficiency steroids, all because the GOP thought they could coast on their slim majorities like nothing's gonna give until the 2026 midterms roll around like a slow-motion train wreck. Laugh with me here, because if I don't cackle at the irony, I'll just start hurling my remote at the TV every time another Fox hack spins this as ungrateful lefty agitators. When in reality, these vets are the real deal, starting their siege on Thursday with rallies that swelled from a few hundred to what organizers are calling thousands strong, flooding the streets around Union Station and the National Mall with signs screaming, "Honor your oath," and "No more treason on our dime," then pivoting straight into what they boast as the biggest direct lobbying push for impeachment since Watergate's hangover, complete with Rep. Al Green marching alongside them like he's leading the charge in some modern-day Boston Tea Party, but instead of dumping crates, they're dumping demands on spineless senators and House reps who can't decide if they want to back the Orange God King or save their own hides from the voter backlash that's already brewing hotter than a summer in hell. And today, oh today is the cherry on this explosive Sunday, with that 2 p.m. veterans rally at the Columbus Monument firing up right in the heart of the flare zone, where these grizzled guardians of freedom are laying it out plain as day. The Trump crew's been committing straight-up sabotage. From gutting the VA with early retirements that slash 30,000 jobs and leave healthcare hanging by a thread, to prepping 23,000 troops for quick reaction crackdowns on domestic unrest like we're auditioning for a sequel to The Handmaid's Tale, and extending National Guard deployments in D.C. through damn February 2026, because apparently quelling protests is the new national security priority over, say, not letting billionaires like Musk turn the government into a gig economy slaughterhouse. Yell it from the rooftops with me, people. What the fuck is this administration thinking? Because while the MAGA mouthpieces are busy crowing about draining the swamp, these veterans are the ones wading in knee-deep, calling out the bipartisan bullshit, but zeroing in on the GOP's iron-fisted control that's cracking like cheap porcelain under the weight of their own hypocrisy. With that recent spending bill, they rammed through keeping the lights on, but carving out deep wounds to D.C.'s budget and programs that vets rely on for everything from mental health check-ins to just not ending up on the streets after giving Uncle Sam their prime years. It's almost comical in its tragic stupidity, how the party that wraps itself in red, white, and blue like a security blanket is now facing a revolt from the very warriors they parade out for photo ops, with groups like About Face, Mayday Strong, Flare USA, and Public Citizen herding hundreds. Hell. Probably more by now, into Union Circle for speeches that rip the mask off the facade, ejecting any lurking Christian Republican guerrilla journalists who try to crash the party with their camo-clad cameras, because this ain't a spectacle for your viral gotcha reel. It's a straight shot to the gut of power. Demanding courts and Congress quit failing the people they've sworn to serve and start honoring those oaths before the whole rotten edifice comes tumbling down. Ha ha ha, imagine the water cooler chats in those marble halls today, some junior staffer whispering to his boss. Sir, the vets are outside, and they've got that look, the one that says we've had enough of your games. While the boss sweats through his flag pin, wondering if this is the spark that turns their razor-thin House edge and that wobbly Senate majority into a full-blown flip before the midterms even sniff the horizon. But let's drill down into the meat of why this has me pounding the table in furious glee. Because it's not just noise. These protests are the canary in the coal mine for a GOP that's overplayed its hand so badly that even their staunchest supporters are starting to peel away like wallpaper in a flood. With veterans nationwide syncing up from Chicago's massive turnouts to New York's street corner standoffs, and even quieter spots in Tennessee and Oregon where the chants still cut through the complacency like a bayonet through butter, all united under banners like Remember Your Oath and Vets Say No that harken back to the bonus army of the 30s, those WWI heroes who marched on D.C. For bonuses, the government stiffed them on, only to get routed by troops under MacArthur's boot. And now here we are nearly a century later with the descendants doing it again, but this time against an administration that's not just stingy but actively hostile. Slashing federal workforce protections, while Musk tweets his way to trillionaire status off the bones of laid-off civil servants, and deploying the Guard like it's martial law light to keep the peace they shattered in the first place with policies that treat immigrants like piñata fillers and veterans like afterthoughts. These rallies aren't isolated gripes, they're the groundswell that's got pollsters scrambling and pundits pivoting, because if hundreds turn into thousands and thousands into a tidal wave by midterms, that GOP control, the one they clawed back in 24 with all their voter suppression tricks and disinformation deluges, could evaporate faster than dew in the desert, leaving them howling in the wilderness while Dems dust off their gavels and start the real cleanup. The kind that puts people over profiteers and oaths over orange egos. Oh, and don't think for a second this is some fringe fever dream. These vets are mainstream muscle, the kind who vote in blocks that make politicians piss their pants from retired LT. Calls like Vince Berardini standing shoulder to shoulder with LGBTQ plus flag wavers under upside-down distress signals, to everyday Joes like Rob Cheng from About Face laying out the ledger of betrayals in speeches that hit harder than a drill sergeant's wake-up call. All while comedians like Cliff Cash warm up the crowds with stand-up that skewers Project 2025 theocratic fever dreams, and the kleptocracy that's got oligarchs like Musk and Trump high-fiving over the rubble of public service. It's a full-spectrum assault, kicking off with trainings on how to lobby without getting lobbied yourself, marching to Congress with reps like Al Green who actually get it, and capping the day with that veterans rally that's probably still echoing as I rant. Flares popping like punctuation marks on their fury, demanding an end to the lawless administration that's turned the White House into a treason factory and Congress into its enabler-in-chief. Screaming now, because why the hell not? This is what revolution looks like when IT starts with salutes instead of surrender, and if the GOP doesn't wake up and smell the coffee laced with tear gas. They're gonna lose not just the plot, but the whole damn building before 2026 even gets its running shoes on, with these protests proving that the base they thought was blind loyalty is actually a powder keg of principled pissed-offness waiting for the match. Phew, venting that fire feels like exhaling after holding your breath through a hurricane, doesn't it, my crew of crown-wearing truth-tellers? Because stories like today's Veterans Rally aren't just headlines. They're heartbeats of a nation refusing to flatline under the weight of one man's megalomania. Reminding us that real power isn't in boardrooms or ballots alone, but in the boots on the ground of those who have earned the right to demand better. And if this doesn't jolt a few fence-sitters off their perches, nothing will. Keep your eyes peeled and your voices loud, because the regime might not remove itself, but with allies like these vets, it sure as shit won't stick around uninvited. Oh, and dearest MAGA, I was not talking to you. I just want to thank you all, like, share, and follow to stay connected. I am Santiago del Carmen Maria, the queen of crowning thoughts, because I say it like it is. Copyright 2025 independent writer, crowning thoughts truth speaker, AI video content creator, writer, blogger, Santiago DC. Maria. All rights reserved.